Hello, 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 hello. Good afternoon, good evening, good night, good morning. Wherever you are in the world, I'm sending you some greetings and salutations. My name is Reverend Phoenix Coffin Williams. I am the first priest of the Correllian tradition, and this is Fridays with Phoenix. However, if you've been following along with me, you know that this is actually my second broadcast of the day, as I did come up and come through with a discussion and some inspiration regarding higher self daily practice or a routine practice with your higher self. And believe it or not, that discussion, that ongoing discussion about developing the relationship with your higher self is actually quite relevant to what I am talking about in this segment on Fridays with Phoenix. For those of y'all who have been tuning in at about this time for the past several weeks or months, you know that I have probably as far back as the middle part of the summer, I've been engaging in a discussion about managing demonic energies in your life. And I've started by talking about how every pantheon and every culture across the world, they've got their pantheon of divinities and they have their emanations that are known as demons. I talked about the way that politics plays, or the role that politics plays in the demonization of a culture or a divinity or a pantheon. I've talked about the perception that demons have towards creation and what they believe about themselves. And I've also been talking about the fact that all aspects of creation, all energetic constructs, all emanations serve a purpose in the grand scheme of things. At the end of the day, in every culture, in every pantheon, in every religion and spirituality, God knows what God is doing when God is doing creation. And so also the creation of demons or demonic energies or unbalanced energies must serve a purpose because it too or they too emanated from the divine mind of the creator. So at the end of the day, a lot of the things that we believe about demons and a lot of the things that we attach to them come from our own shadow. They come from our own fears, they come from our own nightmares, they come from our own psychosis. Example, y'all know that I am largely, like by and large, absolutely devoted to the Neteru, the pantheon of Kemet or ancient Egypt, however you like to call it. My patron is from that pantheon. My practices are from that pantheon and that culture. That's what I do. That's how I connect. That's how I tap in. In the Egyptian pantheon, we've got the gods, of course. And in that pantheon of gods, we've got one named Set, who is absolute agent of Set or Sutek, an agent of chaos. Sutek or Set is responsible for the slaying of his brother, Asar or Osiris. And not only is Sutek for of his brother, for the detriment of his entire body. In our minds, a very cruel thing to do to your own brother, to lock him in a sarcophagus and to dismember them, and then to take over their throne. We might consider that very problematic. We might consider that even a little demonic. However, at the end of each and every day, their Set is alongside Ra in the bark doing battle with the demon Apep or Apophis, dealing blows, protecting Ra, protecting creation from this demon. And when you think about, conceptualize, or start to analyze the figure of Set as a god, someone who appears to be morally corrupt, okay with murdering their brother, okay with dismembering their brother, um, so feared was Set that in one myth, his own wife tricked someone else into getting her impregnated. But because Set was infertile and could not have children, her pregnancy was going to be remarkably suspicious. So she had her baby, Anubis, and like abandoned it, basically, or like set it free in the desert for it to be adopted by her twin sister Isis. Like that is the fear, and that is, how even other divinities regarded Sutek, that got pregnant by somebody else, wasn't gonna keep the baby because like husband's gonna be furious. This brings into question though, so aggressive, so feared, so problematic, even across the other divinities, but yet there he is, day in and day out, tirelessly defending all of creation. It goes to show that some types of chaos, some types of storm are ordained, are set into motion, are consistent with the principles of Ma'at, with the principles of law, order, balance, harmony, truth, and justice. And then there are some types of chaos that are not in line with the laws of Ma'at, or are not in line with the laws of the cosmos. And when those enter the scene, that's when you start to take a look at, destroyed for the sake of destruction. Oh, poison for the sake of poisoning. Oh, counterproductive for the sake of counterproductive. Oh, still serves a divine purpose anyway. So if something is as dual, or seems to be as opposed as, certain forms of divinity and chaos being ordained, and some other things being not ordained, but yet still serving a divine purpose, like how do we reconcile that inside ourselves? And just so we are all aware, it is only in our minds and in the divine mind of the creator and in the united mind that we do find the resolution to these opposites. So what does it mean for something to be ordained for a higher purpose but not be in line with the laws of Ma'at? Well, perhaps there is another order that is yet to be understood, one that in the Egyptian pantheon, maybe there is a type of order, or a greater order that is still swimming in the waters of Moses. What if actually that are in her waters? And she knows all of the things that are in there, and she knows which ones are about to spring forth, and she knows which ones are about to go about it. When we are going about constructing our realities, the things that we think, believe, the things that we pray for, all have, they manifest in our reality, how much we energize them through the astral. All of the thoughts, all of the fears, all of the internal insults, the self-hatred, the self-love, the self-confidence, the lack of confidence, all of those things are swimming in inside our unconscious waters. And sometimes we do let them out of our line with the Egyptian pantheon. You might think about your own battle with your automatic negative thoughts or your own inner demons as battles with your own personal Apep or Apophis. And what qualities do you represent to deal those deadly blows to that chaos so that you can maintain a life of peace and you can continue to manifest and create in accordance with your soul's will? And what role could Apep or Apophis play that not even Ma'at could conceptualize? Or is the battle between Ra and Sutek and the other divinities with Apep, what if that is also ordained by Ma'at? Even though Ma'at is considered to be the daughter of Ra, what if that battle every single day is ordained by Ma'at and her connection to that higher consciousness wisdom? What if she herself knows something about the transformation that Ra undergoes every time he wins or every time he fights? What if Ma'at knows something about the transformation that Sutek goes through or that Set goes through every single time he engages in battle? What if the other divinities undergo a sacred transformation that fortifies and helps them grow every time they go into battle? Because what happens is, or what we learn is that even though they defeat Apophis or Apep at the end of every night, he is not actually slain. He's going to be right there ready and rejuvenated for the next day. So far, the gods have gone all 10 rounds, and Apep has gone all 10 rounds. And tomorrow is going to be round 11, and we have every reason to believe that Apep is going to be defeated but not slain. The sun will rise, cross the skies, and do it all again. If this cycle is one that is ordained, what is the bigger lesson for it? What do the Neteru have to learn? And what do we have to learn by engaging in the same battle with the same demon every single day? What do we have to learn? And why is Ma'at just letting them go about it every single day? I think that's a big mystery. And I think that's a huge mystery in understanding why we choose to engage in battles with demons after we come to recognize that they also came from the same divine mind that we came from. Why do we choose to fight them? Or why do we choose to build relationships with them that continue to represent a bastardization of divinity? Again, what we see in the media, what we see in the books, all of that, it has a profound impact on our mind and how we view things. And so a lot of times the things that we view as demons are actually just thought forms that we created ourselves and now we have to do something with. This is why I say establish, nurture, maintain, attend to a connection with your higher self as frequently as possible. Because in so doing, you cut back on the sheer amounts of painful thought forms that you have to contend with. Engaging in a practice with your higher self daily puts you in a place where you are regularly doing things that help calm you, relax you, empower you, elevate you, and uplift you. Get our initiation in the Corellian tradition. Our initiation in the Corellian tradition. Something happens to us. Something happens to our hands. Something happens to our voices. Something happens to our eyes. Something happens to us, and it changes the way that we interact with the physical world, with the spiritual world, with the mental, emotional. Like, it changes the way that we interact on all these planes of existence so that we naturally move towards balancing, rebalancing, serving, and uplifting the issues, the situations that we come across, even in our own lives. Part of the purpose of initiation into the Correllian tradition, I will absolutely say, is apotheosis. I want to say is the ascension, the merging with the divine consciousness, the recognition that we are not separate from the ultimate creation, right? That is the goal. That is part of what we move towards when we participate in initiation. And part of the way that we nurture this connection is we continue to work and labor as the midwives of the new age, preserving, creating, and sharing magic and spiritual medicine. So yes, higher self, fortifying that relationship. And then if you move into that direction and getting your initiation, when you enter situations that are demonically unbalanced, your presence and what you do with your hands and what you do with your mouth and what you do with your voice and what you do with your eyes and your ears, all of that works to restore the balance. Which is why I said way, way, way back when, Corellians who have paid very close attention to our lessons, we approach the idea of exorcism very differently from anything that you have ever seen. It's almost as if the act of exorcism is encoded in our daily practices. And if you are someone who has moved through and had started to practice in accordance with like a calling towards the high priesthood or the high clergyhood, like maybe you even pray and encode this little practice into your daily practice 3 times a day, or like if you practice or if you pray 3 times a day, if you do one of the basic practices, you have your exorcism component just like encoded in there. If you pay attention, you might be able to figure out exactly what I'm talking about. And then from there, you will be able to apply it to all of the things I've been talking about in the Fridays with Phoenix as we've been relating to demonic energies and demonically unbalanced energies. I will drop another little hint, maybe, or another little gem. In the Egyptian pantheon, so adored, so correct, so pure was the ideal of Ma'at that people would make offerings that represented Ma'at to other divinities. Ma'at is definitely a god's god. Whereas like the Fates might be the god's god in Greece and the Norns might be the god's god in the Norse pantheon. In Egypt, it is Ma'at. And there is nothing that escapes her order. Only us thinking that something is not right. And I think that generalizes across all situations where we pit ourselves as good and the others as bad or demons. Like we are participating in the demonization to step into this work of exercising door towards rebalancing energy is recognizing that as you approach something that appears to be unbalanced, you are using the balance within yourself to restore balance to something that appears to be external. So remember, the diamond, all of creation is the same thing, is one thing. We are a part of it. And so when we look at something external to us and we see that it is unbalanced, or we see that it is possessed of a condition that is not in accordance with balance or truth or harmony, we are really actually looking at ourselves. From this place, we rebalance what we see, and we maintain and fortify the balance of ourselves. If you want to speak in psychological terms, if you want to talk about helping someone recover or re-regulate because they've been triggered into a traumatic experience, co-regulation is when we use the regulation of ourselves to help other people return to a regulated experience. So I hope you find that little tidbit helpful because, again, the medicine that and the techniques that we are seeing come to surface for healing, they all have their origins somewhere in the Kemetic and the Hermetic principles. It has historically been that there is a place for God in the physical, biological, mental, emotional, spiritual healing of an individual. And relegating, someone to being like, that's the physician and that's the priest. That's not something that has been, always historically accurate. A lot of times you were going to the temple and the priests were the physicians. And they were combining principles to help heal. And that was absolutely the case in Egypt, faux show. But again, as above, so below, as without, so within. The principles that we are discovering in the medical field, in the psychiatric field, the psychological field, these therapies and these treatments that we are discovering, they have their origins in the Hermetic principles, in Kemetic principles, in Kabbalistic principles, and in metaphysical principles, so to speak. Hopefully you find this helpful. And this is probably it for me for the week. I probably will not be back with any more broadcasts until next week, like around Monday, Tuesday. Stay safe, stay blessed, stay prayed up for sure. And until next time, may you blessed be.